Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a story that's been passed down for centuries. It's about a secret that supposedly holds the key to protection, to provision, to guidance, all wrapped up in just two powerful names. So let me ask you something. What if two simple words, when you say them with real faith, could literally build a shield around you? What if they could provide for you when you're in need and show you the way when you're totally lost? That is the incredible claim at the very heart of the story we're exploring today. So, where does this all come from? Well, our journey into the secret doesn't start in some dusty old book. Nope. It comes from a source you'd probably never expect, a story told by a jinn. A powerful supernatural being from folklore who says he's been carrying the secret for well over 1,000 years. And get this, these are his own words. He says he's been searching for someone to pass this on to. He sees it as this sacred trust, not just information, but a gift that he himself received from a really famous spiritual figure from back in the 7th century, a man named Hazrat Awais Qarni. Now, to really get the power of this secret, we have to rewind way back. The jinn tells us that 1,400 years ago, he was living among us, disguised as a human. He was just a humble merchant, selling dates in Mecca. A pretty normal life until an absolutely extraordinary opportunity came his way. And this opportunity, it was the kind that could make him incredibly wealthy. But there was a huge catch. It was also incredibly dangerous. It was a path that was going to test not only his courage, but in the end, his faith. So here's how it all went down. He starts out small, just a day trader in Mecca, but because he's known for being honest, this wealthy man asks him to lead a huge caravan all the way to Yemen. This is a massive deal for him. The problem? The roads are notorious for bandits. Still, he takes the risk, and the trip to Yemen is a roaring success. He makes an absolute fortune, which of course leads to his next big problem. You feel that shift, right? He's not worried about making money anymore. He's terrified of losing it. His own success has painted a giant target on his back. The journey home, loaded with all that treasure, was going to be way, way more dangerous than the trip out. So, facing this huge challenge, what does he do? He doesn't go hire a bunch of new guards or buy more weapons. No. He remembers a little conversation he had, and he decides to look for a completely different kind of protection, a spiritual one. See, on the way to Yemen, one of his companions had told him about this great saint, Hazrat Awais Qarni, a man who was famous for his deep spiritual wisdom. So now, in his moment of fear, the merchant tracks him down and explains the whole situation, how he's terrified for the caravan's safety. And the saint, he shares something incredible. He tells him about this special gift he had personally received from two of the Prophet Muhammad's most respected companions, Umar and Ali. And this gift, it wasn't a strategy, it wasn't a weapon, it was something far more powerful. Two specific, potent names of God. And the saint explained that just by reciting these two names, you get complete protection from any enemy. But it went so much further than that. The promise was that these names could provide for basically every human need you could think of, from hunger and needing a home to feeling lonely or completely lost. The instructions he was given were super simple, but very specific. First, write the names down 40 times on little pieces of paper. Second, stick one of those papers in every single bag of treasure. And third, this was the most important part, he had to constantly, continuously recite the names for the entire journey home. A pretty simple plan for a life or death problem, right? Okay, so now he's armed with these spiritual instructions and he heads back to his caravan. But, knowing something is one thing. Putting it into practice, especially when everyone around you thinks you're crazy, well, that's the real test. He shares the saint's advice with his traveling buddies, trying to convince them to recite the names too for their own safety. But they just laugh at him. They mock him. They think his faith is just foolishness. One of them actually calls him a madman for trusting in words instead of swords. And then it happens. Just like they feared, robbers ambush the caravan. For his skeptical friends, the outcome is just devastating. 2 of them are killed, and every single thing they own is stolen. But for a merchant who's just sitting there reciting the names, something truly miraculous happens. He's right there in plain sight, but the robbers can't see him at all. It's like he's invisible. He and all the mules carrying that immense fortune are completely untouched. You can just imagine the caravan owner's face when the merchant finally gets back to Mecca. He's in total disbelief. He just can't wrap his head around how his merchant and every penny of his investment came back totally safe from a deadly raid. The secret had proven itself in the most dramatic way possible. So that's the incredible story. But the big question is, how does a 1,400-year-old tale become something practical for us today? Well, the jinn, after reciting these names for centuries, explains exactly how we can tap into that same power. And so finally, the secret is revealed. The two names the saint gave him were Ya Qadiru, which means O the all-powerful, and Ya Nafio, which means O the benefactor. It's this amazing combination, calling on both God's absolute power to protect and his infinite generosity to provide. Now, the jinn claims that because he's been reciting these names for so long, for centuries, their power has become a part of his very being. And because of that, he says he can now pass on their spiritual effect, their ta'sir, to anyone he shares the secret with, basically allowing them to benefit just like he did all those years ago. And he gives a very specific key to unlock this benefit for ourselves. It's not some complicated long ritual, it's just a simple, easy-to-remember number, 45. So here it is. This is the main takeaway. The instruction for any of us today who want to tap into this power is to make it a daily habit to recite Ya Qadiru, Ya Nafio exactly 45 times. That consistent practice is what supposedly unlocks all of the benefits. And the promise for today is really twofold. First, by doing this daily recitation 45 times, you get that same spiritual protection and provision that the merchant experienced. And second, for anyone in business, they say that reciting it openly while you work can bless your business so much that it becomes as profitable as trading in pure gold. And that really brings us to our final thought. This story lays out a powerful spiritual tool, one that's been tested by time and trial. And it leaves us all with a pretty compelling question. If a key to that kind of profound protection and prosperity was just handed to you, what doors would you try to open with it?